Welcome back to the Movie Man. Today I will show you a 2007 action drama crime thriller film, Shooter. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. In Eritrea, located in the Horn of Africa, Force Recon Sniper Gunnery Sergeant Bob Lee Swagger and his spotter Corporal Donnie Finn are in their camouflage attire hiding in a mountain cliff. Using their sniper rifles, they spot on their incoming Allied convoys being followed by hostile forces. Then, Swagger, a sharpshooter, shoots an adversary in charge of the belt-fed machine gun on a moving vehicle following their allies. Next, he shoots on the driver, which makes the vehicle instantly crash and flip. Unfortunately, numerous hostile forces follow their allies without their awareness. Swagger shoots on them, which makes them detonate numerous missiles on the mountain cliff to hit on them. Immediately, Donnie reports on the Marines' CIA support team leader of their current situation, yet loses contact with the CIA as the leader decides to abandon them. Now on their own, they have to fight the adversaries, including the gunship shooting at them. Sadly, Donnie dies while Swagger weepingly continues to shoot on the gunship in a distance, making it crash on the ground. 3 years later, Swagger, now a retired Force Recon sniper, lives in isolation in the mountains of Wyoming together with his dog named Sam. Meanwhile, in Langley, Virginia, in a private military company, retired U.S. Army Colonel Isaac Johnson reviews Swagger's old file with his associates, Jack Payne and Louis Dobler. He learns about Swagger's failed mission 3 years ago, where Donnie, his spotter and best friend, died that day. Soon after, Johnson drives miles away from Virginia to Wyoming to meet with Swagger, as he is the best candidate he needs for a mission. As he arrives at Swagger's doorstep, Swagger unenthusiastically drives him away as he is not interested in his business with him. However, Johnson persuasively informs him about a code of an anonymous transmission on the US president's assassination in the next 2 weeks. Yet, Swagger does not want to partake in the mission to find the possible enemy sniper location and asks Johnson to leave his premises immediately. Days later, Swagger, who finally decides to do the mission, trains his shooting skill in a can of stew placed on a far distance. He estimates the distance carefully and perfectly shoots on the can. After some time in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Swagger arrives and immediately searches for a possible spot where an enemy sniper will attempt his attack on the US president. He does wide reading and inspections on buildings where enemy snipers can possibly position during the awarding ceremony. Immediately, he reports his reconnaissance and findings on Johnson, so they'll put on teams to stand by on the possible enemy sniper location to stop the attack. On the day of the awarding ceremony of Ethiopian Archbishop Desmond Mutombo, Swagger accompanies Johnson and his men on an overlooking building far distant to the awarding ceremony location. Later on, when the US president arrives at the podium to give his speech about the awarding ceremony, Swagger, on a lookout, believes that the enemy sniper is readily aiming his sniper rifle at the president. So, he immediately reports to Johnson but gets shot in his shoulder by Officer Timmons, Philadelphia police officer. Simultaneously, the enemy sniper shoots on Archbishop Mutombo as he misses to shoot the US president. The crowd panics and leave the area to save themselves. Meanwhile, Swagger swiftly exits the building through the window while Timmons continuously shoots at him. His sniper rifle and ammunition are left at the scene, so Johnson decides to surrender it to the FBI to frame him for the assassination of Mutombo. Hastily, Swagger limp walks away to escape as the entire state and federal law enforcement personnel are searching for him when Johnson immediately points him as the assailant. Thereafter, rookie FBI agent Nick Memphis sees Swagger approaching him. He aims his handgun at him, yet gets manhandled by Swagger and steals his bureau vehicle. Before Swagger leaves, he utters to him that Timmons is a setup and he isn't the one who assassinates the president, which he has no knowledge that Mutombo gets shot instead. Later on, Swagger, driving the bureau vehicle, gets pursued by FBI aircraft and police cars. When he gets cornered, he drives down the Delaware River to escape underwater. Quickly, the FBI department commences search down the river but fails to find Swagger. Swagger, on the other hand, manages to flee the river and sees a truck available to ride on. Wounded, He buys salt, sugar, water and marinade injection at a local store to use to treat his wounds in a public restroom. As the owner of the store grows suspicious of him, she calls on the FBI department to report him. Memphis, who answers the call, immediately reports to Howard about his findings yet gets ignored as he might be making up things. Memphis, believing that Swagger is not the assailant, rewatches the awarding ceremony multiple times to gather possible evidence to prove his point. The next morning, he visits the awarding ceremony location and investigates. He also reads old articles about Swagger's shooting skill and rewatches Timmons' interview that he believes is suspicious. As he informs all his findings to FBI agent Lourdes Galindo, yet, Galindo assumes he's making up things again. Memphis tells her that he'll interview Timmons, but Galindo notifies him that Timmons is assassinated by muggers last night. Surprised, Memphis decides to continue finding more proof and gather evidence to find the real assailant of the attack. Later on, he arrives at the exact location of the enemy sniper and measures the sniper rifle tripod prints on the floor to know what type of sniper rifle was used. With his recorded measurements of the sniper rifle tripod prints, he communicates online with International Gun World members to ask the exact type of sniper rifle used. Afterwards, he learns that the sniper rifle used is different from Swagger's rifle surrendered by Johnson to the FBI earlier. Meanwhile in Keene, Kentucky, Swagger drives to meet Donnie's wife, Sarah, as she's the only one he knows in the city. Sarah hesitatingly lets him in to treat his wounds even if he's a wanted person. Later on, as the treatment operation has finished, Swagger wakes up and tells Sarah his hallucinations. He expresses gratefulness towards Sarah for saving his life and believing him for not planning the assassination. Thereafter, Swagger devises a plan to take down Johnson by coordinating with Memphis. He asks Sarah for her help. Once again she unhesitatingly agrees. The next morning, Sarah, in disguise, meets with Memphis in a restaurant to give him Johnson's vehicle ID number, which Memphis immediately scrutinizes. Due to this, Johnson finds out that Memphis is investigating him. So, Johnson orders his men to abduct and kill Memphis. Later on, Johnson's men hastily abduct Memphis using their black van. They tie and torture him in an abandoned house. Memphis, about to be shot to death, gets rescued by Swagger. Swagger shoots on the abductors using Donnie's old sniper rifle given to him by Sarah yesterday. Afterwards, Swagger asks for Memphis' help. Memphis decides to help him take his revenge on Johnson as he'll be fired from his job anyways. After a while in Athens, Tennessee, Memphis and Swagger arrive to visit Mr. Raitt, who's a greatest gunsmith in Mississippi, asks him if he knows someone capable of making a 2,200-yard cold bore shot to discover who the enemy sniper they're looking for. To their surprise, Mr. Raitt has knowledge of whom they're looking for. He mentions Mklost Zerbiak, an old sniper who now works under Johnson using his alias, Michael Sander. Thereafter, Memphis contacts Galindo to request her to find information about Michael. Immediately, Galindo finds information about Michael and notifies Memphis that Michael is currently in Virginia. After some time at night in Sarah's house, Johnson sends his men to abduct Sarah and uses their hostage to make Swagger show himself to them. In Sarah's hunch, she believes someone must have entered her house, so she aims her shotgun in her door and shoots an assailant to death. However, to her surprise, Payne, another assailant, appears behind her and points a gun at her head. He holds her captive to interrogate afterwards. The next morning in Lynchburg, Virginia, Memphis and Swagger go to a hardware store to buy all the equipment they need to set an attack on Michael's house. Later on, they prepare all the bomb traps and tear gas to use on their attack. Swagger also trains Memphis how to shoot a target using his sniper rifle. When they are fully equipped and ready, they immediately head to Michael's field in their camouflage attire, spotting the armed guards guarding the whole house. First, Swagger chokes and stabs one of the armed guards. Then, he secretly sets on bomb traps meters apart to detonate later once they retreat the field. As he places bomb traps, Memphis signals him on the radio of the incoming armed guard. So, He hides in a tunnel and stabs the guard in the neck and grabs and hides the guard's body from his comrades. As Swagger gets closer to the house, he again chokes another guard and shoots on the remaining guard on the upper floor of the house. When he finally enters the house, he aims his gun at Michael while he interrogates him about the shooting of Mutombo and his connection to Johnson. Michael explains how he was used by Johnson just like how he did with him. Later on, Michael reveals the secret about the mass torture and death in Eritrea in which Swagger has partaken in the past without knowing he protected his allies who killed hundreds of innocent people. Then, Michael tells him about Senator Charles Meacham who's working with Johnson. Before he shoots himself to death, he reveals that Johnson's men held Sarah captive to use as bait to lure him. Thereafter, Memphis alerts him of the incoming soldiers who will arrest and kill him. When the soldiers instantly arrive, Swagger attacks on them and signals Memphis to blow on the bomb traps he set earlier. Then, a gunship arrives to shoot at them. Due to the trauma of Swagger from Donnie's death, he zones out during the shooting of the soldiers. Memphis calls his name multiple times to not zone out and take down the gunship instead. Luckily, both of them survive. Subsequently, Swagger arranges a meetup with Johnson to negotiate his voice recorder containing the confession of Michael in exchange for Sarah, who they hold captive. Also, he demands Johnson to bring Meacham in their meetup in a snowy mountain in Montana, while also secretly tipping off the FBI about their meeting. Soon after, Johnson, Meacham, Payne and Sarah arrive in the snowy mountain to wait for Swagger's arrival. Unnoticed, Memphis acts as a decoy to draw fire from Johnson's snipers, enabling Swagger to locate and eliminate the enemy snipers. When Swagger manages to kill all the enemy snipers, he shoots on Payne's arm next to free Sarah, who later on shoots Payne to death multiple times. Later on, Swagger reveals his location to Johnson and the others. Swagger approaches them and questions Meacham about the confession of Michael that was captured on voicemail. Swagger burns the recording after Meacham makes additional allusions to the extent of the corruption since he realizes it would only lead to his death and involvement. Then, Johnson and Meacham flee the mountain through their chopper when the FBI arrives. Afterwards, Swagger surrenders to the FBI. After some time in the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., Swagger, in a prisoner suit, is chained and interrogated by Attorney General Russert. Russert asks him about the sniper rifle surrendered by Johnson after the shooting of Mutombo. Swagger proves to him that his rifle will not fire because he installs incorrect firing pins to it whenever he leaves home. Luckily, his claim proves his innocence. However, the evidence of the mass killing of Johnson in Eritrea shown by Memphis to Russert cannot be used to hold Johnson captive as the crimes are perpetrated outside of American jurisdiction. Russert approaches Swagger and tells him that justice does not always prevail. Even with that, he drops all charges on Swagger and gives him his freedom back. After some time at night, Johnson is celebrating with Meacham in a mountain cabin for not being held liable for the shooting of Mutombo and the death of hundreds of people in Eritrea. Unexpectedly, a dead guard falls down in front of Johnson and Meacham and they grow frightened as Swagger must have located them. Unprepared, Johnson's men fall dead as Swagger shoots them all. Swagger shoots John right through his chest next. Later on, Swagger enters the cabin to take his revenge on Meacham by mercilessly shooting him in the head. Then, he set Meacham's car and the whole cabin on fire while he hastily flees the place with Sarah, waiting in her vehicle. That was all of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Click the like button and subscribe to watch more videos like this, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.